What if the constant overwhelm that you feel isn't just mental, it's biological? In today's episode, I'm talking with therapist and integrative practitioner Atara Parkinson about what's really happening in our bodies and brains during motherhood, especially in the early years after childbirth. We unpack what it means to still be postpartum, even if your kids are in school, why burnout might actually be mineral depletion, and how modalities like Brainspotting and therapeutic intensives can help high functioning women finally feel like themselves again. If you're a working mom who's tired of powering through and ready to feel grounded, this one is for you. Hey, I'm Dr. Angela Downey, and this is Paging Dr. Mom, the podcast for women who are juggling careers, kids, chaos, and cold cups of coffee. We're talking about the real life behind the resumes, the messy moments, big feelings, and how to stay human when you're doing all the things. If you've ever felt like the only one trying to keep it together, you're not. We're going to laugh, cry, vent, and thrive together. So here we go. Hello to all my busy mamas. I'm Dr. Angela Downey, and I'm so glad that you're hanging out with me on Paging Dr. Mom. This podcast is for all of us who are just trying to keep it all together while juggling kids, careers, and whatever else life throws our way. We're going to be exploring all those moments that we definitely wouldn't be putting on our resumes. I want to introduce you to today's guest. I am so excited to welcome Atara Parkinson to the show. She's a licensed therapist and certified integrative practitioner with over 14 years' experience. Her work blends traditional therapy with holistic tools like Brainspotting, therapeutic intensives, and nervous system support, especially for postpartum moms. As a mom of four and the sole breadwinner in her family, Atara truly understands the weight working moms carry. She brings real tools for healing, not just more advice. Hi, Atara. It's so great to have you on Paging Dr. Mom today. How are you?
I'm so well. How are you today?
I'm glad that we finally get to connect. So maybe we can start by having you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming a therapist and an integrative practitioner.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hi, everyone out there listening. My name is Atara Parkinson, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. And people usually go like, what does that mean? Well, I'm a mental health clinician, and I just got some extra training in my graduate work around family systems, adolescent, children, couples, this kind of work. So how did I become a therapist? Great question. Funny story. I actually studied cross-cultural studies in my undergrad, and I thought I was going to go work overseas. But after finishing my undergrad, I took a gap year, and my mom was working at a university, and she said, "Oh, might as well just come get your master's." And I was like, all right, sure. So that's how I started. It wasn't like super intentional. I didn't go out going, oh, I really want to be a therapist. But within my first semester, I realized, oh my gosh, I really love this work and I have such a passion for people. This is where I need to be. And then I came into the holistic field because I started having my own health issues in 2013 and what we would now label as chronic fatigue, right? Unfortunately, I didn't get the answers that I needed from traditional medicine. And so I kept searching, and I knew that at 25, right, I shouldn't be having to take a nap after being awake for 2 hours. But I would be so exhausted, I would have to lay back down. I had zero energy. So eventually I found a wonderful practitioner who looked at my neurotransmitters and saw that my fight or flight neurotransmitters were through the roof. Like you couldn't even see where they ended on the chart. And my calming ones had completely bottomed out. So I started to change my nutrition, slow down my life a little bit, and I began to recover. And it gave my body the ability to make the energy that it needed. And that's how I really got into this work. And that worked really well for me until I had babies a few years later and was hit with postpartum anxiety.
Can you take us back to that time, that postpartum anxiety that you had? What did it look like for you, and how did you realize that something needed to shift?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first, I want to say that 10 years ago, the term postpartum anxiety was just barely starting to surface. And I was a mental health clinician, and I didn't even know what I was experiencing the first time I was experiencing it. And this is why I'm so passionate about this population, because it took me a few tries, a few babies to even realize that we're not required to suffer in postpartum, and that it actually can be a beautiful and restorative time. So for me, postpartum anxiety really manifested as rage, anger, indecision and hyperfixation. I was very reactive to the smallest things that would go wrong. I'm putting that in quotes because they were wrong in my head. I was very snappy, constantly snappy at my partner, at those around me. Intense rage would bubble up, and I had never been an angry or anxious person in my
Mm.
life. So that was really jarring for me. I felt really overwhelmed by simple questions like, hey, do you want to go do this activity? And my thoughts would start to move really rapidly as if they were in fast forward, like, well, that will interfere with the baby's nap time. And what if he gets fussy and then I'll get stressed and I won't actually have fun, right? Boom, boom, boom. They would come really, really fast. And it wasn't until baby number two that I really hit a breaking point and thankfully discovered how to support my biochemistry and nervous system better.
So that's when you knew something needed to switch. You knew you were not your
Exactly.
usual self. So
Right.
a lot of people think like when your mat leave is over, you should just bounce back and go back to who you were. So can you talk about the idea that the postpartum brain is still your brain, and what do you mean by that?
Yeah, yeah, of course. So this is such a damaging misconception that we hold as a society that pregnancy and becoming a mother, it changes us on so many levels. And I think it's really silly to think that we bounce back because really there is no going back, right? We are a
N-
new
Your
creation.
life is now changed for
Yes, yeah,
forevermore, right? Like
forever.
everything is changed, and you're not going to go back.
Exactly, exactly.
Hmm.
So we're a beautiful, new being, but definitely a different being. And research actually shows that structurally our brain changes, and that can last really for up to 2 years post birth. And in
Okay.
some ways, our brains change permanently. One
Hmm.
study actually found that moms 1 year out performed better on an attention test than non moms in the area of executive control. They could process all the information coming at them while still focusing on that single task. Now, every mom out there, right, just got a mental image of something like trying to cook dinner with the baby getting into the cupboard and the dog
Yeah.
barking and the oven beeping and the older kids
Hmm.
fighting and having to pee, but focusing on measuring those ingredients, right? We know we live this. But in short, just to talk about those changes on the brain level, we're experiencing neuroplasticity or our brain's ability to change, right? The capacity of neurons and neural networks to change their connections and behaviors in response to this new information, aka the pregnancy and the baby. And
Hmm.
essentially our brain is reorganizing itself as an adjustment to becoming a mother. And I know I felt for years like this fear that my brain was never going to work well and I wouldn't get those cognitive abilities back. But to moms listening out there, I'd say trust the process. Know that your brain is actually making amazing changes and is literally reshaping itself.
But it is needing to reshape itself, and that takes time, and there's going to
Correct.
be some pitfalls that come along with it.
Yeah.
So I've heard a lot of my colleagues talk about pregnancy brain, prego brain.
Yes.
What
Yes.
what are some of the changes that people do experience during their pregnancy?
Yeah, great question. So often what is happening is we are, if you can imagine like the brain almost releasing or letting go of unnecessary information in order to have new abilities, new
Hmm.
tasks. So a great example I always love using is I would constantly forget my files up in my office when I would go down to see the psychiatrist. And I kept doing this and I was like, what's happening? Why is my brain doing this? This was in pregnancy, not even in postpartum yet.
Yeah.
And as I've read and researched this topic, well, my brain would forget information like that or forget where I put my car keys, for example, because it was preparing to be more socially in tuned, read facial cues, read signals from body language better. It's just one example. Well, that makes perfect sense, doesn't it? We want to be
Hmm.
able to read our baby, understand what our baby needs. This is one example of how our brain really makes some of those shifts.
Yeah. I was listening to an interview with Evie Pamporis on Diary of a CEO yesterday, and she was talking
Ooh.
about like we all have a bathtub and it can only hold so much water, right? So that's
Yeah.
your cognitive load. So if
Mm-hmm.
your body is trying to prepare for all these new stimuli that are going to be coming your way, I
Mm.
guess you're talking about like getting rid of some of that water to make room for it to fill up with other stuff.
That's a great visual. I love that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
And sometimes it's getting rid of stuff that you don't want to be getting rid of. And maybe that just takes time to find those things again and find that right balance of the things that need to leave your brain to make room for all this new stuff that's going to be coming your way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And to go back to that phrase, new creation, that's exactly it,
Hmm.
right? We are no longer the same. Some of our abilities, I'll say our priorities for our brain and nervous system just shift.
And I'm assuming these changes continue after the baby's born, right? If nothing else,
Correct.
it probably just becomes even more, and you are needing to make room faster and faster for all these new stimuli and all these new stimuli, triggers. I don't know what the best word to
Yeah. Yeah.
use is,
Yeah.
but all these things that are coming your way. And
Absolutely.
many women are having children every 2 to 3 years. So
Uh-huh.
if you're saying that your brain is not quite normal 2 years after, and then you go
Right.
and you have another baby, that's 9 more months of pregnancy.
That's
So, I
right.
mean, really, women who are having 2 to 3 children, that's like 6 to 8 years for
Yep.
them of just constant changes to their brain. And
That's right.
neuroplasticity, you are making all these new pathways in your brain for all these new tasks that you're learning and picking up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we look at, right, like women that have multiple children in a row, I was one of those women, by the way, is we can see the intensity maybe much more strongly the first time, right? Because
Hmm.
it's changing in ways that it's your brain has never changed. And then it can
Yeah.
feel, I think, a little bit more
Hmm.
gentle the time or two after. But absolutely every time, not just the first time we become a mother, but every time we become a mother, something shifts. We're not a mother of one. We're now a mother of
Hmm.
two or a mother of three.
Yeah.
And we have to figure out how are we going to adjust and be in this new reality.
Yeah. And that second and third child, they're going to be different from your first. So
Yeah.
you're learning
Amen.
new things, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, no child is the same, and nobody comes
Exactly.
with the same instruction manual, but I never
Hmm.
got my instruction manual. I don't know if you did.
I
Mine
didn't
never
either,
arrived.
sadly. Lost
Yeah.
it. It lost in the mail, I
Lost
guess.
in the mail. So why do you think that a lot of high functioning women silently struggle with their mental health? And I guess
Mm,
most women do. They struggle with
mm.
some mental health issues after having their children.
Yep, absolutely. I'm really thankful it's becoming more normalized.
Hmm.
This understanding of the changes in the brain, the changes in the body, the nervous system. And gosh, I just love this question because I myself am a high functioning woman. So,
You are.
as a high functioning
You've
woman,
got 4 kids and you're like the sole income earner. That's a
yes.
lot. It's a lot
And
of
we
pressure.
homeschool. We
Oh
homeschool
my
as well,
goodness.
and so my husband does take
Wow.
on most of that, but I'm definitely involved, right? And so, yeah, there's a lot of balls in the air around here,
Hmm.
and yeah, running, I'm sure you understand this, running a business is
Yeah.
difficult work. So, yes,
Hmm.
high functioning, absolutely. And I think high functioning women often mask with busyness and
Yeah.
doing and have
Hmm.
thoughts like, it's okay. I will just figure this out and I'm going to keep going. That's what I do. Right. And
Hmm.
motherhood definitely ramps this up, by the way. Our natural tendency is to fix, especially as moms. And the internal energy to look for is if you find yourself saying or thinking often, like, I must or I have to. This is the energy of the fixer, of the high functioning woman. Angela, Dr. Angela, you got a great look on your face over there. Is this resonating with you?
It
Yeah.
is. It is absolutely.
Mm.
The minute you said that, I'm like, I feel like that was my entire last 15 years was
Yes.
I have to do this. I have to do that. Um, I often felt like I didn't have a lot of choice and that my main role was as a mom and there are things
Mm.
that I just had to do. And as a
Yeah.
result, I never really took good care of myself.
Ah, yeah.
Everything was, I have to do this.
Exactly.
Um, yeah, it was tough.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And this is the nervous system, right?
Yeah.
It's speaking safety through, or I'm sorry, seeking safety, or it's speaking to us as well. And it's trying to help us seek safety through action. Because most likely
Right.
along the way, we learned that to some degree. Like, I'm safe, or I feel safe if I can do this, if I can
Yeah.
accomplish this. And it's really powerful to bring our awareness to this, because it's a state of hyper arousal, right? A hyper
Hmm.
aroused nervous system. And it's that fight or flight is maybe the more common phrase people will recognize out there. What that will do long term, you're mentioning 15 years, right? So what this
Hmm.
will do
Hmm.
long term is bring depletion and burnout to our system, because we're not made to live in that state for long periods of time.
Yeah. No, I definitely did not take very good care of myself. And I tend to
Mm.
fill up my time because as long as I was moving forward or juggling 10 different things, I didn't really need to think about how I was feeling and what were the things that I needed. So I was just like on this autopilot
Mhm.
and just keep going. And sometimes it's hard to say that you're having trouble with your mental health, right? There's
Mm.
maybe a sense of failure, like I'm not being a good enough mom if I'm
Mm.
struggling with the kids. So there's a lot involved in
Mhm.
trying to manage things after you've had children and still trying to find time for yourself without feeling guilty.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the way you put that. I hear that often from clients is, um, I I feel more comfortable going all the time, right? If I
Yeah.
have something morning till evening and I'm just running, running, running at this really rapid pace, that actually feels more comfortable. And I feel more comfortable with that in my body, in my system. And that's a good indicator. If we can't slow down, if we struggle with being
Hmm.
present or relaxing, that we are in that fight or flight state.
Yeah. I went to a spa. So I booked this like lovely day. I was going to go to the spa and relax. And I spent like 5 minutes in this dry sauna and I was fidgety the entire time. And I was like, okay, well, what do I do now? Like I've been here for 5 minutes. What do I do now? And where do I go now? And I couldn't, I knew there was a problem when I knew I just couldn't be
Mm.
by myself.
Yeah.
And, I went and got some tea, left the tea there, went to the next thing. And I was like, wow, I've done these circuits of like
Mm.
the hot and the cold.
Mhm.
I've done them over and over again. What do I do now? It's time to go home. And it's been an hour.
Mm.
So I knew that there was a problem when I could not relax and I was
Mhm.
stuck in this fight, flight, freeze mode.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and I'm so glad you had that moment, because as you're saying, sometimes it's easier to ignore, right? To
Yeah.
push that down, to just keep going, to
Hmm.
say, I'm just going to focus on the kids. I'm just going to, but we talk about the mom being really like the pulse keeper of the home.
Hmm.
And if we're not okay, if we are not regulated, what is that going to lead to in our children and within our household? A dysregulated household. And I also think about teaching or modeling behavior, right? I ask clients all the time, when was the last time you saw a peaceful or rested woman? And they will they will pause and say, oh, I can't actually think of one.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, this is so important to be able to say, can I be in a place to care for myself, to rest, to allow myself to be present? That's super important for our system.
How do you think society's expectations around women and having to do it all, how do you think that impacts moms?
Oh man, so many layers here, but I'll address just the macro today, which is a clear devaluation of the support of the family system.
Mm.
And stateside, we have a pretty offensive maternity leave coverage, just to be really blunt with it. And I've had many moms in my office in tears because they had to go back to work at 6 weeks with virtually no time to
Wow.
bond, yep, with their baby. And
Yeah.
then, their physical body obviously isn't, healed, all the way as well. And I've heard over and over, right? I don't have time to pump in the workplace. It's a point of contention with my employer or seen as an inconvenience. And another example would be most jobs don't have any grace with mom's schedule, right? Picking up or dropping off children from childcare. We tend, at least stateside, we tend to be pretty rigid on those things. So overall, I think the message ends up being kids get in the way of your production, essentially, is what
Yeah,
it comes
for
down
sure.
to. And I couldn't disagree more with that. Raising up the next generation
Mm,
is the most important work. So the
for sure.
impact then on women is that we internalize this message and we either end up resenting our roles as mothers and or keep striving, right, for this lie that we're sold of you can do it all. We cannot, right? I'm a human, Dr. Angela. Are you human over there?
I'm human.
Good.
Yeah.
Just checking in.
Yeah.
Right. I think everyone out there is human, right? So we really, it's a failure. It's a disservice to
Mhm.
women to say you can do it all. We really cannot.
So we're in Canada. I'm in Canada. So we have mat leave for a year. And even then, it's hard to go back. So I
Yeah.
can't imagine what it would be like to have to part from your child at 6 weeks
Yeah.
and to have an employer who doesn't have any flexibility in your workday. That almost teaches you that your children, your family is basically a side gig.
Exactly.
And you can't let that side gig interfere with your primary role, which is working for the system.
Exactly.
That is hard. And
Yeah.
it is an investment that in society for us to put this time and in raising these healthy children who are going to, continue and run our corporations in the future. So there is some room to invest in that. And it's
Yeah.
unfortunate that it's not recognized. And women have to, if you want to take a year off, that's a real luxury because most people can't afford to take that much time off
Yeah.
unpaid.
Yes. I was going to ask, is any of it paid leave?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a blessing, right? Whatever we can get.
Yeah.
But also, yeah, it's so minimal and so unprioritized is the word
Hmm.
I will use. And for me, what we really looked at when we had our first was I did step back and I did not go back to my full-time position in a community clinic because I was like, this is the most important work. Now, what did that mean for our household? Well, it meant years of struggling financially. No
Hmm.
extra, right? No extra
Yeah.
expenses, vacations, none of this. And so absolutely, you're absolutely right. It was a complete sacrifice and it was really difficult, and I'll say too that then adds extra stress on the couple and the household. And so really ideally this conversation would be a twofold where yes, we might have to make sacrifices as a household, but also how can we get some structural support in whether that's from our government or I don't know, nonprofit, something so that we can encourage the family bond and
Hmm.
raising up these kids.
Yeah. So not everybody gets paid maternity leave. So you have to have a job in a company and be
Okay.
paying into the employment insurance.
Mhm.
And then when you go on mat leave, I think you get like 55% of your income. And then
Okay.
some companies top that up. When I
Mm.
had a child, I was a student, so I wasn't working. I did not get to collect any maternity leave. And I actually went back 10 days after a C-section,
Wow.
which was not a great idea. And my partner was on paternity leave to take care of the baby. But
Okay.
um, yeah, it was really tough
Yes.
leaving the baby
Oh,
at 10 days. And I knew
wow.
he was well cared for. My partner was
Mhm.
there taking care of him, but
Yeah.
it was really hard to leave my child that early on.
Yeah.
And my C-section stitches opened up, got
Oh.
infected. Like it was just terrible. And it's
Oh.
not a good idea to race moms back because there are a lot of changes that your body is going through that
Exactly.
you have no control over what's going on in your body, and you're just
Right.
not well enough to return that quickly to work.
Absolutely. And how I'll say it succinctly is we are literally fighting our biology at that
Yeah.
point when we're
Yeah.
racing back and forcing ourselves because there's this still huge hormonal surges happening in that time period that really um, is drawing us to stay connected, stay close to our child, that we really,
Mhm.
again, to bring up disconnection or disassociation, right? We're really disconnecting from ourselves when we aren't adhering to what our body is telling us.
Yeah. So, what are some of the signs that your nervous system is dysregulated?
Mm, ugh. So there's two main types of dysregulation that show up in sessions, and they are hyperarousal that I mentioned earlier. And this looks like feeling the need to control, often or constantly rushing, right? You mentioned the sauna, and I'll go back to that, right?
Mhm.
Oh, God, what do I got to do next, right? Rushing to the next thing, attempting perfection, anxiety, irritation, worry, frustration, anger, fear. This is all in that hyper arousal fight flight section. And then we have the shutdown state. And this is the dorsal vagal, to use a science word, but this is essentially depression. It can look like low energy. It could look like numbness or disconnected, exhaustion, burnout, withdrawal, passion, a lack of passion, or resignation all fits into this shutdown category. And
Mhm.
where to start in helping or reshaping really depends on where you're at and what your individual nervous system needs. And sometimes I will post little hacks, right, on social media, but I'm always really hesitant to do so because what works for one nervous system
Yeah.
does not always go well for another.
Mhm.
And a good example here is breath work. And I hear a lot of clients that come in and they're like, that doesn't work for me, or I tried that, I saw that somewhere online and it doesn't go well. And yeah, because your nervous system is not the same as somebody else's, and sometimes we need to layer support. So for example, we might need to kind of shock our body a little bit with like a sour flavor, a lemon wedge in the mouth. Or I have a client who uses Warheads, which that 90s candy, right? They're super sour. Oh, you don't
Oh,
have those?
okay. No. Well,
It's
I
like,
don't know. I've never had one.
okay, okay. Well, that's your task, I guess, this week, Dr. Angela,
Okay.
is to go find a Warhead. It's a super, super sour candy. It will make your cheeks pucker in. But this really
Okay.
kind of like shocks the body a little bit. Another example would be ice, an ice pack on the back of the neck.
Mm.
So maybe
Mhm.
that's what your nervous system needs first to kind of get itself out of that moment. And then maybe opening up your peripheral vision, which narrows when we're in that fight or flight. That might be more effective for your system. And then we utilize the breath, perhaps. But this is an
Mhm.
example of maybe someone's system doesn't respond well to breath. And so they need some other tools here.
Mhm.
Really, though, the key is tuning in and recognizing where is my state right now, which part of the nervous system am I in, and I want to say too, I think a misconception often is the nervous system, a regulated nervous system means we're always common centered. And that's just not true. It's not possible either. We naturally like teeter totter all day, and that's okay. And I'll use an example here. When, if let's say you were to wake up late, your alarm didn't go off, and you need to get the kids and yourself out the door, you are not very likely going to be in a regulated state, in that
No.
calm, centered, hey guys, right? We're late today, right? I don't know very many moms that that's going to be the energy given here.
Okay.
We're naturally going to drop down into that yellow zone, that hyper arousal, right? Where maybe we're a little bit on edge, our energy increases, we get a little, I don't know, I'll speak for myself. I get a little testy. I might raise my voice a little bit. Please put on your shoes, right? Get a little bit
Mhm.
panicked.
Mhm.
This is natural though, right? For us to kind of go into a stress state. And then ideally, I'm able to come back out of that fairly quickly. And so the example I'll use here is like, hopefully by the time everyone's in the car and you're on your way, okay, I can feel myself coming back down. I feel a little bit more calm again. Um, hey, maybe I'll thank everybody back. Thanks guys for, getting ready so quickly. the ability to socially connect is a good cue that we're in a
Mhm.
regulated state. Does that make sense?
Okay. It does. So maybe we can talk a little bit about depletion. So you
Uh,
speak about minerals and nervous system regulation. So
mhm.
can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is a subject I have so much passion for. So I see minerals, nervous system, brain health really interconnected and interdependent. And the signs that I mentioned of nervous system dysregulation are also ones of depletion. So
Mhm.
ideally, we are addressing all of these simultaneously. Now, I don't know about in Canada, but in stateside, we have a very separated medical system where we have kind of a specialist for everything, but no one's really talking to one another. And we don't
Mhm.
really have an idea of like looking at the whole person or the whole system all together. And that's why I think it's so important that we do it. So, an individual experiencing chronic stress or a traumatic event, the calcium in the body actually goes into action and forms a protective shell, if you will, around the cells. And the impact of this on a emotional level or on a personality level is like blunted emotional expression. And the reason the body does this is because it's wise. And think about like getting into a car accident. The moment that it happens, you wouldn't want to just be a puddle of tears on the highway, right? That's not
Mhm.
ideal. You would ideally go off the highway and get to safety first. Well, this calcium shell allows us to do so because we're not as connected with the emotional experience of what is happening. But after the stress ends, ideally, that calcium comes down and magnesium and potassium are allowed to go back into the cells to repair and calm the system. The
Mhm.
problem becomes what happens if that shell stays up? What happens if
Right.
that
When you're
stress
in
is chronic?
constant stress and fight or
Exactly.
flight. Okay.
Exactly, exactly. So what that ends up looking like is withdrawal, difficulty connecting emotionally, depression, and an individual again that has no zeal for life. And we're talking about the nervous system. The person could stay stuck in that chronic fight or flight and feel on edge all the time, or always trying to fix things, as we talked about. This taxes the body and the biochemistry, as well as showing up in that personality way or
Mhm.
our temperament would be an example. And so that's how stress or constant trauma really depletes our bodies.
Is there anything we can do about that? Or our only option is to self-regulate and calm down?
Yeah, and that's that twofold, right? That ideally, we are doing both. We are learning the tools, right? We're
Mm.
helping learn how to manage stress, how to regulate our nervous system more quickly, how to get out of that fight or flight. But we're also giving our body those basic nutrients and minerals, even vitamins as well, that it needs so that it's more resilient. I
Mhm.
talk about minerals as protective over the body and the nervous system. When we have adequate amounts of them, they are able to go to work readily. But if you
Mhm.
don't have enough magnesium, and then, let me mention real quick, side kind of trail here, but we get more depleted in pregnancy. So
Yeah.
we're in this stress state and we're utilizing this even more, right? The body doesn't have what it needs to stay regulated and stay grounded, so that it's even harder to do so.
So I guess that's where multivitamins during pregnancy come in handy.
Right. Yes. So getting those minerals in through good nutrition, um, there's a lot of great stuff out there. A quick example would be um magnesium bath flakes. A great brand I love is Ancient
Mm.
Minerals. There's no plug here. I'm not associated with them, but it's something we use in our household. And what I'll do is I'll throw a handful of that in the bathtub when my kids are taking a bath, and I will put my ankles in and soak up some of
Mm.
that extra magnesium. They're getting their hit of
Interesting.
magnesium. I'm getting my hit of magnesium. Everyone sleeps great and has a supported nervous system that evening.
Okay.
Yep.
No, I like that. I'm curious about when we were talking earlier, you mentioned brain spotting, and that's something I'd
Mhm.
never heard of before. So, can you tell us
Mhm.
what that is?
Yes. Oh, I really love brain spotting. Brain spotting is a somatic therapy or a body therapy, if you don't know that word. And it uses what we call eye fixation. So, keeping our eyes
Mm,
at a specific point in space in our field of vision. And what this
okay.
process does is it reveals, disrupts, and releases negative thoughts associated with memories and actually can help shift them. So in
So, you're talking
tradition,
about like actually looking at a specific
correct?
spot.
That's
Okay.
right. That's right. In brain spotting, we say where you look impacts how you feel. Very
Okay.
interestingly. Yeah. So our eyes are actually our outermost parts of our brain. There's a part, the retina is directly connected to the spinal thalamic. I always have trouble saying that. Thalamic
Yeah.
tract, which goes to our hindbrain and then is connected to every organ in our system. And
Okay.
so when we change our eye position, I mentioned earlier, right, opening up our peripheral vision, this would be
Mm-hmm.
another example that's interconnected. When we do that, it actually signals safety to the body and helps us feel more calm. When we talk in traditional talk therapy, we just are using our prefrontal cortex or our neocortex. We call this the thinking brain, right? It's what
Mm-hmm.
you and I are using to converse right now. But brain spotting helps us access our subcortical brain, which is where trauma gets stored. And a brain spot essentially is a physiological, an actual capsule, if you will, held in the brain of distorted emotional experience. And brain spotting helps to, I kind of say, untangle that so that we can not feel stuck in a
Okay.
thought. Yeah. I kind of say, have you ever felt like I keep telling myself this? I keep telling myself, maybe it'll be okay. It'll be okay. But I don't feel connected to it. And brain spotting actually helps engage like a thought we've been having and like provide resource for us.
Interesting. And you also offer these therapeutic intensives. So, what does that look like?
Yeah. Ooh. So an intensive is just an extended time in session instead of a weekly hour-long session. So, for
Mm,
example, I run a 2-day, 3-hour intensive. So we meet for 3 hours at a time, 2 days in a row, or we could do 4 days, so 2 days, and then maybe the next week or weekend, 2 more days for those 3 hours. Gosh,
yeah.
we don't need always to have weekly ongoing time, but to have really focused time on something specific, that's when an intensive is going to be a great fit. Yeah.
So for the working mom who feels like she has like nothing left to give, what would you say are a few simple practical ways that she can start caring for herself on a deeper, maybe cellular level?
Yes. Oh, I'm all about the practical. So I'll throw a few ideas out there that are easy
Okay.
to implement, and y'all can pick what works for you. So, first and foremost, I'm going to say nourish yourself properly. An example here is please don't wake up and just chug your coffee. This is super activating, especially if you're already in that fight or flight. It's super
Yeah.
activating for your nervous system. So, maybe just try to get in some food before you eat your coffee. Just make a small switch like that. An adrenal cocktail might be a really great resource for your body. There's lots out there on the internet. My favorite one is coconut water, a lime, and
Mm.
pinch of salt. Oh, my body just loves it. Lots of potassium, lots of good sodium in there, some vitamin C from the lime, super nourishing. If you're having like that 2 or 3 p.m. slump, instead of reaching for coffee or caffeine again, try an adrenal cocktail. I mentioned the minerals earlier. Again, ancient minerals, bath flakes in the tub, morning sunshine on your eyeballs. Oh,
Yes.
it's so good. It sets up all your hormones for the day, even your sleeping hormones being regulated and releasing properly. Ideally, before you look at your phone or turn on the lights, can you go to your window or even better, get outside for just a couple minutes,
Yeah.
stand and get some of that sunshine in your eyes? And lastly, I'll say, put down your phone. Put
Yeah.
down your phone, stay present. It's also so calming and nourishing for our nervous system.
Yeah. For the last couple months, I have dogs. And so when I let them outside,
Yeah.
I actually step outside on the deck and I put my face up to the sun and I take some
Ah.
like big, fresh breaths of fresh air in. So I do that multiple times a day and I can feel my feet just rooted to the ground.
Mm,
And it's such a calming feeling for me.
that's
It
right.
is getting a lot colder outside. On
Yes.
our end, I'm
Same.
in Canada, and
Mhm.
winter is coming for sure.
Yes. Yes.
Um, but still, I go out there in the cold and take some breaths of fresh air, and it's just
Good
lovely.
job. Yeah, and you
Yeah,
know what, Dr. Angela, you can use your animals as a conductor, okay? Because they're touching the ground, and when you
yeah,
touch them, you also get that same benefit of the grounding. So that's one way to
yeah,
get around it. And also, I want to make sure I'm saying this right. The not the asphalt, the concrete also
yeah.
conducts. So if you can get your feet on that
Interesting.
as well, those are all good ways.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm with you. We got winter coming in quickly here, but I still try to prioritize, even through the window, getting some of that sunlight in.
No, sun is healing.
So healing.
I love the sun, which
Yes.
sucks because right now I'm in a corner in my basement. I don't see the sun in my little podcast booth,
Oh, darn.
but I do like to go outside and see the sun and listen to the birds for a little bit.
Yes.
So, what do you want mothers to know about honoring both their drive and their need for restoration?
Mm. That it's not impossible, is
Yeah,
what I'll say. You can be ambitious and not burn out if you take care of yourself.
yeah,
And so I'm living that reality right now. It doesn't have to feel overwhelming. You can implement one step, one thing at a time. And that's exactly what I walk clients through is don't feel like you have to do a complete lifestyle diet, nervous system overhaul. Let's just take it one piece at a time. And so for example, right, if that one piece is, oh yeah, I'm just downing my coffee first thing in the morning. Great.
yeah,
Let's change that. Or oh yeah, I'm picking up my phone and it's resetting my system to midday instead of morning. And so my hormones aren't being released properly. Great, let's work on that. And let's slowly chip away at it. Don't feel like you have to do all the things
mhm,
at once.
yeah. Atara, I love quotes. Is there a particular quote that you'd like to share with us?
Oh, good. I love it. So this one just really spoke to my heart because it is relevant to the work I do and also relevant to how I educate my kids. And so my quote is from Aristotle, and he
Yeah.
says, educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. And I think that's so relevant for today too, is for those
Hmm.
high achievers, right? We kind of tend to focus on the minds and
Yeah.
to get into and remember that heart space, because when there's coherence between these two, it makes all the
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah. You can't just work on one and forget the other.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes,
No,
agreed.
I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing. So, how can
Mhm.
listeners find you?
Yeah, well, my website would be first and foremost, and that's just my name,
Hmm.
ataraparkinson.com, ATARAPARKINSON. And then the second place I think I'm most active is Instagram. And I'm
Okay.
just at atara.parkinson. And I have such a love hate relationship with social media. I
Yeah.
love it because I
Yeah.
love
Me
connecting with
too.
you all. And I love giving free information. So there's a lot of info on there on nervous system, quantum biology, nutrition, and minerals, kind of all wrapped into one on social media there.
Okay. And you've got a course, you've got a freebie called the Nervous System Ladder, and then you've also got a course. Can you tell us about those?
Yes. So my nervous system ladder is a great starting point. This is a visual of some of the things we talked about in here. That fight, flight, uh, that shutdown, that freeze. There's one more on there that I'm forgetting. But it lists all of them, and then it gives some indicators of, okay, how do I know which of those I'm at and at what points in time? And so it gives you some things to look at. And then my program, Mama Rewired, is for mothers that gosh, they felt like they've lost themselves. Maybe they're
Mm,
recognizing some of those pieces of the nervous system dysregulation. Maybe they feel super depleted. And so it's exactly what I kind of said here is it's 12 weeks where we chip away at some of these. It's individualized, so it's not broad general advice. It's where are you at and where do you need to start? And so you get to meet with me one on one over 3 months, and we're going to really
okay.
personalize and shape that as we go through the 3 months.
I think that's really important. When you're a mom and you're working full time, it's easy to lose yourself in that role and forget who you are, the things that you like.
Yes.
So I think that that's really important. I think I lost myself for about 15 years, and
Oh,
it took a while to remember how to get back to who I
mhm.
was. I didn't know what I liked anymore.
Yeah. With you, Dr. Angela. I was there
Yeah.
for about 7 years, and I think it's such important work for moms to do is to like just come home and say, who is she? Who is this
Yeah.
individual in the mirror now?
Yeah. So, Atara, thank you so much for joining me on the show. Your honesty and your wisdom and the practical tools that you shared today are really going to resonate with so many women who feel like they're just running on empty. So, I love how you helped reframe burnout as something that we can actually heal from with the support and with just a little bit more self compassion that we normally don't allow ourselves.
Oh,
And thank you to all of you who are hanging out with us on Paging Dr. Mom. If you enjoyed today's episode, go ahead and hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss what's coming up next. And if you want to keep the conversation going, you can find me over on Instagram at drangeladowney. I would love to hear from you. So take care for now. You are doing better than you think. That is it for today's episode of Paging Dr. Mom. If it made you smile, nod along, or feel just a little more seen, then go ahead and hit that follow button and share it with a friend who needs to hear it. Take care for now. You are doing better than you think.